Welcome to Limitless Mind. Today's topic is 5 badass habits that will make you unstoppable. Today, I am giving you some keynotes for this. What if the reason you haven't become unstoppable yet has nothing to do with talent, luck, or motivation, but with a few daily decisions you've been avoiding? What if I told you that the people who dominate their lives don't feel stronger than you, they're just trained differently? And what if by the end of this talk you realize that the version of you who never quits, never breaks, and never settles is not something you need to find, it's something you need to activate. Identity before behavior means everything you are trying to change in your life will fail if you only focus on actions and ignore who you believe you are at your core. Most people wake up every day trying to force habits onto an identity that does not support them. They say they want discipline, but still see themselves as lazy. They want success, but still see themselves as unlucky or average. The mind will always protect identity over goals, so when behavior conflicts with self-image, behavior loses every single time. That is why people quit, procrastinate, self-sabotage, and repeat cycles they swore they were done with. Unstoppable people flip the formula. They do not wait for proof to believe. They choose an identity first, and then act in alignment with it. They don't say, I'm trying to be confident. They say, I am someone who shows up boldly, and their actions are forced to follow that command. Identity is the root system. Behavior is only the visible fruit. Change the root, and the fruit changes naturally. Your identity is shaped by the story you tell yourself repeatedly. Every time you say this is just how I am, you are locking yourself into a pattern. Your past does not define you unless you keep using it as evidence. Unstoppable people understand that the past is data, not destiny. They decide that who they are becoming matters more than who they were. They stop asking, can I do this? And start asking, what would someone like me do next? When identity shifts, decision-making becomes automatic. You no longer rely on motivation or willpower. A disciplined person does not debate whether to act. A resilient person does not negotiate with quitting. A leader does not wait for permission. The identity makes the decision before the mind starts making excuses. This is why identity is power. It removes friction. It removes internal conflict. It removes hesitation. Most people wait for results to give them confidence. That is backwards. Confidence is not built by success. Success is built by identity-driven action. You move first, the belief follows. You keep promises to yourself, even small ones, and your self-image begins to upgrade. Each aligned action becomes proof. Over time, the new identity hardens into certainty. This keynote is for anyone tired of restarting, tired of hype, tired of temporary motivation. You don't need another technique. You need a decision about who you are. Once that decision is made, your standards rise, your habits align, and your tolerance for excuses disappears. You stop negotiating with weakness because it no longer fits who you are becoming. The moment you define yourself differently, your brain starts looking for ways to stay consistent with that identity. It filters opportunities differently. It reacts to challenges differently. It chooses effort over comfort without drama. This is not pretending. This is training your mind through repeated aligned action. You are always acting in alignment with an identity, whether you chose it consciously or absorbed it unconsciously. The question is not whether identity controls your behavior. The question is whether you're finally going to take control of your identity. Emotional mastery is the difference between people who are controlled by life and people who command their lives. Most people believe their emotions are reactions, something that just happens to them, something caused by other people or external events. That belief quietly steals power. When you hand control of your emotions to circumstances, you hand over control of your actions, your decisions, and ultimately your future. Unstoppable people understand that emotions are not orders. They are feedback, and feedback can be managed. Every result in your life is shaped by the emotional state you live in most often. When you operate from frustration, fear, or self-doubt, your thinking narrows, your body weakens, and your choices shrink. When you operate from certainty, focus, and intensity, your mind expands and your actions become bold and decisive. Emotional mastery is not about being positive all the time. It is about being in charge of your inner world, regardless of what is happening outside. Your emotional state is created by what you focus on, how you interpret what you focus on, and what you do with your body in that moment. Change any one of those, and your emotional state shifts. Unstoppable people don't wait for the world to change to feel better. They change their focus, they change the meaning, or they change their physiology. They move, they breathe differently, they speak with certainty, they take control of their posture and energy. The body leads the mind more often than people realize. Most people let a bad moment turn into a bad day turn into a bad week, and a bad week turn into a story about who they are. Emotional mastery breaks that chain. It allows you to interrupt patterns in real time. One decision, one breath, one shift in focus can stop a downward spiral before it gains momentum. This is how unstoppable people recover fast. They don't avoid negative emotions. They refuse to live in them. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure reveals who has trained their emotional state and who has not. When stress hits, untrained minds panic, overthink, and shut down. Trained minds lock in, simplify, and execute. Emotional mastery turns chaos into clarity. It allows you to respond instead of react, to stay grounded when others collapse, to lead when others look for excuses. This keynote is for people who are tired of feeling hijacked by their moods. You don't lose discipline because you're weak. You lose it because your emotional state is unmanaged. When you learn to command your state, discipline becomes natural, confidence becomes stable, and resilience becomes automatic. You stop needing perfect conditions to perform at a high level. Unstoppable people understand that feeling bad does not mean doing bad. They act with power even when emotions are heavy. They use discomfort as fuel instead of permission to quit. Over time, this builds emotional strength, the kind that cannot be shaken by opinions, setbacks, or temporary failure. When you master your emotions, you stop living at the mercy of the moment. You take back control of your energy, your focus, and your direction. And once you are in control of your inner world, the outer world no longer has the power to stop you. Discipline over mood is the line that separates people who talk about potential from people who actually build results. Most people wait to feel motivated before they move. They wait to feel confident before they act. They wait to feel inspired before they commit. That waiting is the trap. Moods are unstable. They change with sleep, stress, weather, opinions, and circumstances. If your progress depends on how you feel, your progress will always be inconsistent. Unstoppable people understand a hard truth most people avoid. You will never feel like doing what growth requires most of the time. The work that changes your life is usually uncomfortable, boring, repetitive, or scary. Discipline is not about being intense for a week. It is about showing up when the excitement is gone and the results are not visible yet. Mood is emotional weather. Discipline is a system. When you operate on mood, you negotiate with yourself every day. You debate whether to start, whether to continue, whether to quit. That mental negotiation drains energy before the work even begins. Discipline removes the debate. The decision is already made. Action becomes automatic because it is no longer tied to feelings. Most people think discipline is punishment. It is not. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the ability to keep promises to yourself regardless of discomfort. Every time you act despite resistance, you send a signal to your brain that you are reliable. That builds trust with yourself. Self-trust is the foundation of confidence, not hype, not affirmations. Proof. When you rely on mood, inconsistency becomes normal. You start strong and fade fast. You feel guilty. You restart. You repeat the cycle. Discipline breaks this pattern. It allows you to move forward on low energy days, stressful days, uncertain days. Those days matter the most because that is when most people stop. Discipline also creates emotional stability. When your actions are consistent, your emotions eventually follow. You stop riding highs and lows because your behavior no longer changes with your feelings. This creates momentum. Momentum is not built by big wins. It is built by showing up again after you wanted to quit. This keynote is for people who are tired of starting over. You are not lacking motivation. You are lacking a rule that says action comes first and feelings come later. Once that rule is installed, excuses lose power. Resistance becomes background noise instead of a stop sign. Unstoppable people do not eliminate resistance. They expect it. They plan for it. They move anyway. They understand that discipline is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. What feels hard today becomes normal tomorrow. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You see yourself as someone who finishes. That shift changes how you show up in every area of life: work, health, relationships, self-respect. When discipline leads and mood follows, progress becomes inevitable. You stop asking how you feel and start honoring who you decided to be. Relentless self-standards are the invisible force shaping the quality of your life. Not your goals, not your intentions, not what you say you want, but what you consistently accept from yourself. Most people aim high but live low because their standards are weak. They tolerate excuses, inconsistency, distraction, and half-effort while still hoping for extraordinary outcomes. Life never rewards hope. It responds to standards. Your standards are the rules you live by when no one is watching. They determine what you allow, what you walk away from, and what you refuse to compromise on. If your standards are low, your life will reflect that without apology. If your standards are high, your life is forced to rise to meet them. Unstoppable people don't wait for motivation to raise their standards. They raise their standards, and motivation eventually catches up. Most people confuse standards with goals. Goals are what you want to achieve. Standards are who you refuse to be. A goal says I want success. A standard says I don't miss commitments. A goal says I want confidence. A standard says I do the hard thing even when it's uncomfortable. Goals can be postponed. Standards are non-negotiable. You don't get stuck because you don't know what to do. You get stuck because you keep tolerating behaviors that sabotage you, late nights that steal tomorrow's energy, small lies to yourself that slowly destroy self-trust, settling for comfort when you know growth requires discomfort. Very time you tolerate something beneath your potential, you train your nervous system to accept less. Relentless self-standards change behavior without force. When your standard is clear, decisions become simple. You don't argue with yourself. You don't negotiate with weakness. You act because anything else would violate who you have decided to be. This creates internal alignment. There is no split between intention and action. That alignment is power. Raising standards is uncomfortable because it exposes excuses. It removes familiar identities. It demands consistency where chaos used to be acceptable. That discomfort is not a warning sign. It is confirmation that growth is happening. Unstoppable people lean into that discomfort because they understand that standards are built through repetition, not declarations. When you raise your standards, relationships shift, habits shift, time management shifts. You stop needing external pressure because internal expectation becomes stronger. You don't need someone to push you. You push yourself because anything less feels out of alignment. This keynote is for people who are done negotiating with their lower self. You don't need to become extreme. You need to become clear. Clear about what you accept. Clear about what you tolerate. Clear about what you expect from yourself, regardless of circumstances. The moment you stop tolerating inconsistency, your identity upgrades. Confidence grows not because life gets easier, but because you know you will show up no matter what. That certainty changes how you walk, how you speak, how you decide. Your life will never exceed the standards you enforce. Raise them relentlessly and reality will be forced to respond. Daily micro wins are the secret weapon of unstoppable people because momentum is not built through dramatic breakthroughs, but through small victories stacked with intention. Most people underestimate the power of tiny actions because they are addicted to big change. They wait for a surge of motivation, a perfect plan, or a massive opportunity. While they wait, days pass and confidence erodes. Unstoppable people play a different game. They focus on winning today, knowing that consistency beats intensity every time. A micro win is a small promise you make to yourself and keep. It could be waking up when you said you would, finishing one task completely, moving your body for 10 minutes, or choosing focus over distraction for a short block of time. These actions may seem insignificant, but they are not. Every micro win sends a powerful signal to your brain that you are reliable. Reliability builds self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Most people try to change their lives by overwhelming themselves. They set unrealistic standards, miss them, then interpret that failure as proof that they are incapable. Micro wins break this cycle. They are achievable even on hard days. They allow progress without pressure. They create forward motion when motivation is low and circumstances are messy. Momentum is a psychological force. Once it starts, it wants to continue. Micro wins create that force. One small win makes the next action easier. Energy follows action, not the other way around. You don't wait to feel powerful to act. You act, and power shows up in response. Over time, these small actions compound into massive change without the emotio now burnout that stops most people. This keynote is for people who feel stuck, not because they lack ambition, but because they are exhausted by starting over. You don't need to do everything today. You need to do something and do it fully. Completion matters more than volume. One finished action builds more confidence than 10 half-done attempts. Daily micro wins also sharpen focus. When your only goal is to win the day, distraction loses its grip. You stop comparing your progress to others. You stop chasing unrealistic timelines. You measure success by alignment, not applause. This creates calm determination instead of anxious urgency. Over time, micro wins reshape identity. You stop seeing yourself as inconsistent. You start seeing yourself as someone who shows up daily. That identity shift makes bigger goals feel less intimidating because you trust yourself to move step by step. Unstoppable people don't ask how far they have to go. They ask what the next small win is. They understand that greatness is not an event. It is a habit practiced quietly every day. When you commit to daily micro wins, you remove the pressure to be perfect and replace it with the power to be consistent. And consistency over time creates a version of you that cannot be stopped. Being unstoppable is not about intensity, luck, or waiting for the right moment. It is about the habits you choose when no one is watching, when you decide who you are before life decides for you, when you take control of your emotional state, when you act regardless of mood, when you raise your standards without negotiation, when you commit to winning the day through small, consistent actions, everything changes. Progress stops being fragile. Confidence stops being temporary. You stop starting over because you stop quitting on yourself. This is not a transformation that happens overnight, but it is one that becomes inevitable once you commit. The power you've been searching for is not outside of you. It is built daily through decisions that align with the person you are becoming. Decide today to live by these habits, not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but when it matters. That is how unstoppable people are made.